Thanks very much, James. Hi, everyone. So yeah, I'm Jan Savitsky-Hughes. And yeah, today we're going to be talking about creative testing and user acquisition. So let me get this right. Great. So who am I? So I'm currently the director of growth at Triple Studios. I handle pretty much all user acquisition activity, overseeing pretty much anything in that spectrum. Before entering the mobile gaming space, I was doing banking and finance. I've been doing performance marketing for 2+ years now. And just a little bit about me. So in my free time, I'm kind of an amateur movie critic, if you'd like to call it that. I used to be an eager traveler, but hoping to get back to that one day soon. And I play chess quite a bit. About Triple Dot Studios. So we're a fast-growing independent mobile gaming studio. We actually have 3 offices now: London, Minsk, and St. Petersburg. We have about 2.5 million daily active players across all of our games. As you can see on the right, we have a lot of games from casual, card, puzzle, genre, and word. Our 2 biggest titles are Solitaire and Wudoku. If you haven't played it or seen them, go check them out. And we go by a very simple rule, which is data-driven everything. So before we start, I just wanted to do a quick poll here. If you go into the live discussion section, you'll see, I see already 13 votes in there. How comfortable are you with your creative testing process? We currently have 8% saying that they're absolute rock stars when it comes to creative testing, 38% saying that they could use a few improvements in their structure, 46% saying, we struggle quite a bit to get significant results, and 8% saying that we shouldn't even get them started. So yeah, I think this is a very relevant topic to all of us, and there's never been one good answer to all of these questions that I'm about to present, but hopefully I can give some clarity around some of these general issues that all of us face on a day-to-day basis. So, have you heard any of these lines before? Creative testing is everything. How do I test creative? It's hard to beat my best performing creative. What can I do about creative fatigue? Generally, these are the main issues I face, and yeah, I would love to go through them one by one. So, creative testing is everything. I think this is one of the main aspects of user acquisition, and it's incredibly important to understand all the levers that we have in order to be able to optimize our campaigns and drive pretty much the best users into our apps, into our games. I put here a little quote from Thomas Edison, which is, "I have not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." And I must say that's pretty much how it feels. We fail a lot in order to find out one good solution, and then we keep on failing until we find the next good solution. So here are just a few small points that I'd like to go over. So find your winning concepts. What I mean by this is, obviously we all have our user acquisition channels, and we all have our preferred user acquisition channels. Whatever type of campaigns we're running, the algorithm will always choose that one, maybe even 2 best performing creatives. And we know that we have some concept that works really well for us. So we have that. What can we do now? We can utilize all dimensions, because depending on the source that we're advertising in, it will depend on where the creative is shown. This is especially important in Facebook, for example, where different dimensions actually mean different placements, different users, really. What else? Try different types of lengths, colors, texts. In gaming, we also do a lot of playables, which I think are becoming more and more popular. And as you can see on the top, this is these small changes that we can make for our solitaire game, for example, is exactly the thing we would love to test, and it would give us very clear indication on which type of, for example, font, color, background will allow us to drive the most users. Never stop testing. I think this is pretty clear by now. In general, we're all going to face creative fatigue at one point. All these creatives, so they will tire out by the audience, by the algorithm, and therefore we just have to keep on going with new concepts, with new ideas, and also with new iterations. And this is what I mean by optimize, innovate, but actually optimize. It's very important to find incredible concepts that work and keep on going with them, but it's also incredibly important to do those tweaks to your creatives, do those tweaks to those best performing concepts, and making sure that you've exhausted all options before you completely change your creative path. Okay, but how do I test? And we have here Travolta being confused in this Facebook ads manager. So here are just a few maybe small examples of what we can do. I'm sure a lot of you already know about these, and the few of you that don't, I hope this is quite insightful for you. I guess there's no one proven way of doing this, and we all have to test multiple different approaches in order to find the best solution. We have the automated app ads in Facebook. The reason I separated Facebook here from the rest is I believe that there's the most bandwidth when it comes to creative testing over there, and therefore I guess it's as important to be able to find that winning concept there. If you're not using Facebook for your advertising, of course, more or less the same rules would apply, except for the specific tools to these networks. So automated app ads, AAA. This is a reasonably new tool of Facebook's. What it basically does is you are able to upload up to 50 creatives, and Facebook does all the automation for you to get the best performing ones up there, and to make sure that the performance is being driven from this one, maybe two creatives. The upside of this is that obviously we learn very quickly which of out of these 50 creatives, which one Facebook believes will perform best, and then most likely gives it the most impressions. If you really want to test new concepts, new iterations, it's actually quite difficult to do here because given the sheer volume of creatives that you have in there, there's actually a small chance that your next creative is going to go up into where your best performing one is. A/B testing. So I'm sure everyone has seen this possibility in Facebook where we basically are able to get reliable results by more or less even impression split, and test our creatives and to see which ones have the best performance, and we can choose which metric we want to optimize towards to understand this performance. In my personal experience, these have been incredibly expensive, and it hasn't always worked out for us. So reliable results, yes, but time and how expensive these are, we have to make sure that we're only utilizing them for very important causes, really. Separate campaign, of course. So the other option, which is just launch a separate campaign targeting reasonably similar audiences and see how the new creators perform, and maybe they'll perform better than the original campaign. Of course, we have risk of cannibalization, and you have to take into consideration the size of the audience that you have in this case specifically, but you do understand how Facebook's algorithm will prioritize the creatives within that campaign. When it comes to just general video ad networks, I think we have much less possibilities here. You can add the creatives to your main campaign that's running. There's low risk of really disturbing the performance in that case, but there's high risk of not receiving many impressions. And we've, in the past, we've tested a lot of these approaches. What we've seen is, of course, if there's a winning concept in that new campaign, it is going to receive the impressions. It's just very hard to understand whether a concept is winning just by putting it into that campaign, because the chances are it will not really receive enough love. And then we have the separate campaign structure, which actually I think most of these video ad networks recommend in their platforms. If you do that, they generally say you have to put a higher bid in to get fast, and then you can get faster results, which is great, but it's kind of you get higher risk from the start, and most likely you're not going to get the results that you want, because it is not easy to be the best performing creative. So it is very challenging when it comes to video ad networks. I think testing both options and seeing what works for you is pretty much the most we can do here. Okay, so I think that just as an industry, we just love our abbreviations. I remember when I joined, everyone was just screaming these CTR, CVR, CPI, CPC. So yeah, it's okay if you don't know them, if you're fresh in the industry. But what it is basically different ways and different approaches from which we can optimize the funnel before the person downloads the app and the funnel after. And in reality, it really depends on the game, the app that we're doing this for. But what I want to say is what is important is to understand the combination of the few metrics that work for your app, for your game, and then being able to understand when you're testing these creatives, what is the result that you're actually trying to get. Because if you only look at one singular of these metrics, it won't really give you enough information. So make sure that you use the right combination in order to drive insightful results. Okay, it's hard to beat my best performing creative. And here I've used a quote by Newton, which is, what goes up must come down. And what I mean by this is pretty much all the best performing concepts, they will tire out, they will end, the audience will get tired of them, the algorithms will get tired of them, and you'll just have to find a new one, and you will most likely find a new one after a while. And therefore, you cannot stop testing, which I think I've already mentioned a few times. But also, yeah, it's hard for us too. We also have difficulties beating our best performing creatives, but it happens, and it doesn't really matter that it's difficult. As long as you keep on testing and keep on improving that process, the impact that the best performing creative has is monumental to your campaigns. And I'm sure you've all seen this on yourselves, that it's just the results that can be driven from the best performing creatives cannot be compared to anything else when it comes to the user acquisition funnel. So keep testing, and with time, there will be a new winner. I also have two videos here that kind of, I think, showcase nicely what we could possibly, as UA managers, believe that will work as a creative and what actually can work well as a creative. So here's two ads from our Sudoku game. Hopefully we can get these to launch. Yeah, what I was trying to showcase is the one on the left, you see there's way more thought put into it, more dynamic the creative is. The one on the right is a person playing Sudoku, and that's it. And you would expect in many cases that maybe the one on the left will perform better. Actually, the one on the right was the reality one, was the one that performed really good for us for a long time. And it just shows that you have to test all concepts, not only the flashy ones, and make sure that you're able to utilize pretty much everything that your product can give you to create a good creative. Okay, so what about creative fatigue? what I like to start with is audiences get bored quickly, algorithms react dynamically. And we can see this across a lot of our advertisers when we're using our phones on a daily basis, that we do see sometimes the same creative over and over and over. And you can see that after a while, they stop appearing and we get new concepts from the same advertisers if you're the user that's being targeted by that specific advertiser. And I think it's natural. I mean, we as human beings get bored pretty quickly in general, but also the algorithms that are used by the ad networks and the Facebooks and Googles, they're reacting quite quickly to understand what will work best for the user. So I think it's very important to keep your audience broad enough so that exhaustion period lasts as long as possible, basically. Of course, this depends on the targeting that you have within the app/game, but the broader you'll keep it, the easier it will be to not exhaust the audience in a short period of time. Before you completely change the creative concepts, try to make small tweaks. This is something I've mentioned before already. I think what's important here is that we make iterations on proven concepts, and we try to keep on focusing also on not only on the purely new concepts, but also on making sure that we've exhausted all possibilities for our current concepts. And of course, keep adding new creatives. There are many different ways of doing this as we've gone through before, but what I think is important is that we keep on doing this. We keep on finding new structures of adding new creatives and being able to determine the new winner. And after 10,000 failures, there's going to be a new winner. I also just wanted to have a quick mention on, I guess, what my feeling is with iOS 14, SCAD, and all that good stuff that's going to happen from a creative standpoint. I'm sure, like me and like probably a few others in the crowd, we're kind of getting tired of this constantly changing timeline. However, what I think is very important to understand, or my personal belief actually, is creatives are going to become one of the very few levers left to optimize campaigns. And what I mean by that is we're losing pretty much most of, if not all, the information that happens after the install, and that funnel kind of is becoming very, very blurry for us. Therefore, the funnel that we're still going to have very good visibility on is the one before the install. And we are going to have to adapt with our creative strategy in order to acquire the users like we used to before. And I think this will require us to focus quite a bit on this specific space. Amazing. So yeah, that's pretty much all from me. If you have any questions, recommendations, general complaints, please let me know.
Great. Thanks, Jan. I'm sure there won't be any complaints. That was the perfect start to the day. And as you say, very timely and relevant. Do you want to just stop sharing your screen? And I will, but we do have quite a few questions. So if Vladislav, maybe you can paste that one into the Q&A, and then we'll try not to miss it. So let's dig into these. We've had quite a few. So if I filled them, Jan, is that okay?
Yeah.
So Mert is asking, he is from, I think it was a fortune telling app, looks quite interesting. And he has been asking, how much budget do you allocate for creative tests, and how long do you run your creative test campaigns?
Sure. So I guess it really depends on the strategy that we use to approach a creative test. In general, I would say if we're using the A/B testing functionality, we are going to try to utilize the strategy in the fastest possible timing. So generally, we would allocate. I think the minimum that, for example, in this case in Facebook, they suggest is about, I think it's $50 per creative is the minimum that they suggest in order to start any test. I believe it should be a bit more than that, because you just need to get the learnings reasonably quickly. Otherwise, you'll end up running this test for way too long, and probably the information that you're going to get out of this is already going to be not as useful as it were if it were to run a week. So to answer the first question, how much budget do you allocate? Minimum for $50. hopefully much more. How long run your creative test campaign? I would say hopefully we could run it within a week would be great, but it does really depend on how much budget you actually allocate.
Okay, great. And Sun back, I think he's from eBay, is asking any suggestion on how to combine personalized hyper-targeting ads with automated app ads?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, it really depends on, I guess we would have to be speaking a little bit more about Android and iOS here, because I think iOS, this is not going to become that relevant soon enough. I think if anyone was here when Google made the change to UAC, and it's a very similar story here. At one point, I think a lot of the industry just gave up and went with the automated solution. And I personally don't think you can really combine the two strategies. You're either going to have to stay with your personalized targeting strategy, or give the time and effort into actually believing that the automated app ads solution is the one that will work for you well.
Great. And Eleanor from Libertex, I think it's financial services apps, she's asking, just wondering if micro changes like a button color, etc., make a difference to your campaigns.
For us, yes, absolutely. I think these tweaks that I was mentioning is a lot about micro changes. Maybe not necessarily a color button of the color of the button in our case, but these are exactly the type of things we would test, whether it would be the font, whether it would be the logo, lack of logo, etc. I think what's important here is if you'll probably know that the most important part of the creative is the first 3 seconds. So the iterations that you do, especially in those first 3 seconds, are the ones that are going to be most valuable. However, of course, we've seen different performance based on adding a CTA or not adding a CTA in the creative.
Great. And Vladislav is asking, how do you run multi-channel testing? Do you use any combining tool, and which tool do you use later on for analyzing the results? So
yeah, this is a very good question as well. So multi-channel testing is definitely a big struggle. We do feel, I guess, fortunate that we do see similar performance across our main channels, or our biggest channels, and our other channels, usually video ad networks in our case specifically. So what I would say is we currently don't really use a tool that combines the data. We kind of ad hoc do it ourselves, and we combine the data pieces from the different sources. But what we do see is, more often than not, in our case, if we have a best performing creative in our main channel, it's pretty much always going to be the best performing in our ad networks.
And Christoph Schmid is asking, which KPIs are you considering for a more successful concept or creative? A combination of more or just one?
Definitely a combination of more. When I guess when we started a bunch of these creative testing strategies, we're trying to understand actually what will we define as a good creative. Is it the click-through rate and the conversion rate, and how do we separate each part of the funnel? Because, for example, the conversion rate is not only the creative, but it's also how your app store looks, and so on. And I think what we do is we tend to look at the cost per X, whichever one we're using for the campaign, and understand whether the cost per, for example, cost per install, whether it will have a bigger, basically, will it be lower than what we were testing before? And with that, we do a combination of the click-through rate in the test, and then understanding whether the CPI will the click-through rate that we saw reflect a lower CPI later on down. And it's basically a two-phase test.
Great. And Vladislav is saying, great, thanks for answering. So that's good. And,
no worries.
Kate is asking, what can you tell about the mislead? Many publishers and agencies offer it when they do UA, so we'd like to know your opinion.
The mislead. I prefer to call it tempting, you know. But yeah, it's become an incredibly powerful, I guess, creative tool that I've seen a lot of advertisers do. I'm sure it's worked incredibly well for a few, and I'm sure all of us have seen a few of the ads that I'm thinking of right now. What can I tell you? It really depends. It really depends on the platform. Some platforms will not allow you to do it, or will make sure that you have, I guess, altered your product in order to make the ad as little misleading as possible. Publishers, what did they do? UA would like to know your opinion. So in general, I've seen results being very good for these type of creatives. I would not go too far away from the actual concept of the app or the game, but making alterations or different, I guess, aspects of the game or the app can be a valuable test for you.
Great, and I think this will be the last one. Thomas Bui from Striv is asking, do you test only one variation of creative or multiple variations with some mutual elements?
We generally test either we test one concept in multiple variations. So I don't know, for example, the color of because it's quite a very simple screen for us. For example, in our solitaire game, it's a very unique, simple screen. So we would test, for example, multiple colors and the same text that we would use across the video. So that we would definitely use those type of tests. Or if we have a bulk of new concepts to upload, then we would test one creative of each in the same dimension, so that we're sure that we are giving the same chances to it, and trying to figure out which one of those performs best. And we would usually pair it with one of the best performing creatives from our previous campaign.
Great. Okay, well, I think that's it for the questions. So that was a perfect start to the morning. And really glad we could make this happen this time, Jan. And thanks so much for putting together such a thoughtful presentation. And yeah, thanks so much, and hope to see you in person, either in our Berlin event, maybe in December, or failing that next year.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much for inviting me, James.
Great job.
Have a good one, everyone.